to the All Things Good podcast. I'm your coach and your host, Giovanna Sorrell. I want to thank all my listeners, supporters, subscribers, and followers for supporting the podcast. If you're not yet supporting, you can follow me. You can subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify. There's so many options for you to choose. I want to thank you for tuning into today's episode. Today we have Shannon Alise once again on the podcast. She is a life coach, a mental health coach, and a personal trainer. And today we're going to be discussing athletes combating mental health. I think this is going to be very helpful for our listeners, for those who are looking to get into the sports or already in sports and are battling with mental health. This is a topic for you. Help me to welcome Shannon Alise.
So how are you, Shannon? How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm very excited about today's topic. I truly believe that today's topic is going to help a lot of people who are already within the, sports arena, or maybe looking to train, maybe looking to coach people, or just looking to get back in recreational sports. So I truly, truly think that today's episode is going to help many people. So tell me about your background and your passion for sports and mental health.
So background, I'll just go a little bit in depth. So currently I'm a personal trainer, individual trainer. Before I was in the military for 8 years, idiot Mike transportation operator, and then transfer over into NCOIC, that sergeant in charge of their physical fitness test, before the new test is out. So I was basically in charge of making sure administrating the test to soldier, making sure they pass and get qualified for whatever it is they needed and or wanted in their military career. Little bit further back, just sports wise, I played various amount of sports, flag football, basketball, track, all high school and younger, and all three AAU. So I had some outstanding coaches for all three, AAU and in my high school in Tallahassee, Leon High School. So very outstanding coaches. One sport that really stuck out to me that I got to play my last year was flag football with my high school, and AAU. Had the same coach for AAU and high school for that sport, as well as basketball too. So yeah, it was very conducive to my character development for in many different realms, and that helped me in my military career and now my civilian career as well.
That's awesome. Wow, I didn't know you had that many sports behind, in your career. That's awesome. So when did you realize that you wanted to not only be a life coach, but a trainer and a mental health coach?
With that probably started around 2020, 2021. I had my own personal experience dealing with depression. I was diagnosed with MBD in 2022. But I always knew something was wrong, just in that aspect, and not even in my adult years, just my high school years as well. It's just more so I knew something was wrong because I was having bouts of up and down, up and down, up and down. And then once 2020 hit, I was still doing my thing. But then I just kind of not necessarily got off track. I just went into a season of dealing with depression and knowing I needed help and looking for that help in outside in the spaces that weren't constructive to getting me back on track to where I needed to go. So that was one thing that kind of stuck out, and I pretty much got myself back on track by myself. I kind of cleared my space to get my head game right to get back on track with bodybuilding. So, but that kind of stuck out to me like a sore thumb because it's just like, oh man, I was going through this time, and I made sure I kept track of what I did. Either it was, therapy, trying to figure out what was wrong, and or the coping mechanisms I needed to make sure I mastered my craft and get back on in my lane. And then also, if I'm going through this, it made me think about, well, what about other athletes, not just in bodybuilding, just in general. And then it made me think about, going back to high school and AAU, like athletes go through this all the time and it's not spoken about. It's, basically, especially with bodybuilding, you're on stage, they see you, all right, execute, do this. You're here, you have to pour effort, time, energy into that as an individual, and then also be demanded of, if you have kids or family, and or if you're being demanded by outside sources, the fans,
Yeah.
and I say this very bluntly. There's a difference between fans and friends. Fans are gonna constantly look for that energy that you're pouring out, always looking for you to go, 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 go. And if you're not pouring out, or if you had a season like I did, if you're down, oh, shoot, well, one hit wonder, boom, that's it. Sometimes they leave you alone, and sometimes they're only looking for that high or looking for you to motivate them. And I'm not saying, I'm looking for my fans to motivate me in no way, shape, or form. I do this because I want to. But you got to know the difference. Friends, however, are going to be there, are going to cover you, are going to pray for you, are going to, whatever resources they have that you may need or they think you may need, they're going to give it to you freely without even thinking about it. They're going to know something's off when something's off versus a fan. They could see that something's off and be like, okay, well, I'm trying to take, and I want more and more of your energy. And if you're not giving this to me, up on to the next, or I'll just, wait till your energy's back up so I can, basically come back for more. And that's what not a lot of people, I think, from my experience, they don't really pay attention to it until you either come out with it and you say something's wrong, or in some cases, something's catastrophic. And I have to refer back to the military. There's this thing when you do 22 push-ups for soldiers that commit suicide. Soldiers don't talk about that stuff. And you have to be, as a former leader and or soldier myself, you have to be aware of your surroundings. They tell us all the time, be aware of your surroundings. It's not just for the enemy. It's look out for your battle buddy. Like, why are they so quiet? Why are they sitting by themselves? Why are they doing this? Why are they acting this way? And you can put that over into the civilian world. Why is this athlete acting this way? Why are they acting out? Do they need help? Because
Right.
of behavior, there's always a cause and effect. There's always something that causes a behavior. There's always something that affects a person to where they behave a certain way. And there's always, consequences at the end of things. And sometimes those consequences aren't necessarily forthright and or what we want to envision for the athlete and or the people attached to them for the outcome.
Yeah. You know what? You hit two major things. The first one, fans versus friends. Um, it's important that she's emphasizing this. I want to emphasize on it as well, is that for those who are in the sports arena, those who are training, those who are personal coaches, or those who are just looking to get into it, wherever you are, or if you're just a fan, there's so much pressure on these athletes that we cannot even imagine or fathom. And so I'm just picturing just fans giving all this pressure, all this, this energy towards this one particular person. Let's for instance, LeBron. I don't watch sports and I'm not a big fan of LeBron. I don't even know like his record, but I know that there's a lot of talk with about him within the media. So just even that, like the criticism, the judgment, all these things can affect the mental health. And that was one of the questions that I have for you is how can criticism of fans create such a pressure in mental health? Like, is it something that you see? Do they take it to heart or are they trained to kind of combat that?
I would say I have to, and again, I have to speak from my experience. And I'm not saying this to be um, in any way, shape, or form uh, somebody who is just unaware of the criticism. People talk. You gotta know people talk at the end of the day. People are gonna talk regardless of what you do. And I think he even said it on one of the little talk shows with the men. People are gonna talk. People are gonna talk about you. You can't really care. That's what you can't really care about what people say about you. They're gonna talk good about you. They're gonna talk bad about you. I've been in some situations and around people who talk about people as they're on the come up. And this can take away from their character of who they are to their families, to their friends, to just people in general. And referring back from my experience, I have to say this, and I say this in the most humbling ways possible. I don't care. And I think when people uh, absorb they start to care about the criticism. They start to, pay a little bit more attention to what things they normally would just, walk by or just not even give the time of day or energy to. And it's more so, oh, well, they're not, working hard enough. Again, referring back to that absorbing and not observing. Okay, I'm going to observe. I see you talking about me. I see you saying this stuff about me and or around what I'm doing, but I'm not going to take it in because I know what I'm doing behind the scenes. And a lot of people, I think they don't, when you're not secure with self and what you're doing and perfecting your craft of whatever it is, you let stuff like that come in. And that adds on more insecurities. And if you do not work on those insecurities, you become just like those people. And that stems from insecurity. People who take time out of the day to criticize, especially when it's not constructive criticism. And I say that very big and loud, constructive criticism. Why are you criticizing me? What is the constructive that I'm going to get back from this? What's the solution to this? So are you pointing out a flaw and that you see that I need to work on, and what habits can you give me? Or are you pointing out that flaw to highlight that flaw to make yourself feel better about your insecurities and your shortcomings, just to build yourself up for that moment in time, and then to tear me down for that moment in time and for a lifetime to stop what I'm doing? Because I think if athletes remind themselves why they're doing it. Are you doing it because you want to? Number one, I do this because I want to. That's why nobody can knock me off my block. Nobody can knock me off my square. Nobody can catch me off guard. That's just it. My foundation is set. When you have a solid foundation like that, when the criticism and all that stuff starts to come in, it's like, okay, it is what it is. That's the mentality I have. That's a little bit dangerous, but it is what it is at the end of the day. I hear you. I see you. I acknowledge what you're saying, but I'm not going to take it with me. I get to pick and choose what grows in my grocery bag. I get to pick and choose what goes in my toolbox. And if it's not feeding me, nourishing me, and if it's not something that I could take out of my toolbox that's going to help me build on that foundation, then it's trash. It's just trash. Like we say in basketball or any other sport, it's trash talk. People are going to talk trash talk. You just got to know what to throw away and what you're going to use and take that to, get that next shot or just get that next grow that next muscle or just achieve and step on stage and just kill it. But not a lot of people know how to observe and not absorb, and they take in all this extra stuff. And especially when you're a young athlete, teenagers, when you're middle school age, teenage, or even just young 20s, you're still, in some retrospect, and you see this a lot in high school, you have kids that are playing these sports because of their parents. And that's one thing I commend my mom on, is she never made me play a sport ever. Everything is because I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. And I just like doing it. It wasn't for the trophies. It wasn't for the recognition. It's because I wanted to do it and I wanted to see the improvement of myself. And I'm like that today. It's a growth mindset. A lot of people don't have that. And you'll see a lot of these athletes play these sports, and if they don't meet that expectation, you run into cases of suicide. You run into cases of depression. You run into cases of anxiety, of trying. Then these kids start to trying to fit in outside of the sports in areas and environments they don't even belong in.
Right. And I've seen that a lot around me, where you have parents who are, maybe played the sport when they were younger and didn't really pursue it, and now they force their kids to take on the same role that they once had. And it's reality, did they want to take on this sport, or is it something that they're doing to satisfy you? And
Just
that's
living a dream, living their dream for them.
to, like, the parents, those who are out there who, who have kids, sons, daughters, whatever the case might be. Like, I have a daughter and I used to play softball, and I was told to play softball, do this, do that. She didn't want to. I didn't force it upon her. But, I think that as parents, as coaches, I think we need to be mindful and aware of the pressure that we're putting on these kids. They're still young. They're still, and I get it. There's, practice makes perfect is what they said. But does practice and all this pressure create something within the mind that we're not seeing? And they're ultimately hiding because they don't want to disappoint the parents. And that's a big
Yeah.
thing. I like that you mentioned that. And I like that you mentioned observing versus absorbing. That's a good key factor for any kids, any teenagers, or anyone just listening in any point of life, wherever you are, whether you're in the media, whether you're in modeling, whether you're in acting or podcasting, there's going to be someone that's going to always say something, right? They're always going to criticize. She could have said this, she could have done that, what she looks like this, whatever the case might be. It's important to observe it and keep it moving than absorbing it. I like that. That's a good pointer for our listeners. Thank you so much for that. So, how can the criticism of coach or those on the sideline affect the mental health of the actual athlete?
Ooh, it can, I'll just start from this. It can stop progress, number one. If there is a goal you're trying to attain as a coach, and I will say this, if there's a goal that you are trying to attain as a coach, um, patience, number one, but also with that patience, you have to communicate to your athlete. If you're having criticism from your coach that is not constructive or solution based, I'm gonna just tell you off rip, it's gonna fail. It is gonna fail. It's not gonna be good for the athlete. It's not gonna be good for the people attached to the athlete. It's not gonna be good for the outcome. If there's something that you know that you you as a coach and the athlete can gain from whatever it is you're doing, whether it's to see them signing day, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's just more resources and or people working with you, um, that can be the make or break when as far as the criticism from a coach. Now, if you have a coach again that's just going in, boom, 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 of course they're gonna want to see you do. All coaches want to see you do good. They want to see you excel. But you have to be open minded. Number one, if you don't have a coach that's not open minded, it's going to be hard, especially if you're an athlete that's well educated and or that may have different ideas and or that may have some creative ideas that may help and or add and be an addition to the training and or the outcome. You have to have a coach that's going to be open minded. You have to have a coach that's going to listen. Now, is what you're giving your coach going to be implemented all the time? Absolutely not, because if they may see something that you as an athlete that may not see, or they may know, you know, the direction in where you're headed in. They may know the barriers and what's ahead that they can kind of shield you from with kind of navigating to different options for the outcome. That can be so much detrimental because sometimes coaches don't know what athletes are going through at home. And I'll, you know, say this with as far as being an athlete who lives by themselves, who pays their own bills, who has to go out there, work, and, you know, sometimes do what two people do. That is a lot. And sometimes coaches do not take that into consideration.
Right.
That their athlete may be dealing with stressors, you know, with work and or family matters and things outside of that. You know, of course, those things build resilience because you learn to adapt. But you don't, as an athlete, you don't want any extra additional stressors that's going to cause you from stopping you from getting to your goals. So that's why I think it's imperative for athletes to make sure the environment that they're looking to be in is a sacred environment. Number one, an environment that's going to cover you, not just financially or emotionally, mentally, spiritually as well. Seeing people that are going to take into consideration, you know, okay, if I say or do this to the athlete, then what could possibly be the outcome? Could it be them not working with me, or could it be, um, you know, them not ever hearing from them again, or could it be nobody ever hearing from them again? Because you don't know what a person's battling at home that could cause them to end it all. And I have to be very blunt with that because not a lot of people um, like to say the things that are taboo or like to say the things that may cause even more harm from that one little thing. So it's not a I always have to watch what I say around this person. It's how are you delivering the message? Are
Right.
you educating while you're delivering this message? Are you being straightforward, or are you being passive aggressive, which is causing you to deliver the message in a way that's not going to be received with respect? Are you respecting the person in front of you when you're given this criticism? Okay, once you get this criticism, where do you go from there? Because if you give criticism and you just let that athlete just sit there and to wonder and to think, and you know, the athlete goes home, those thoughts start ruminating over and over and over. And if you just lost something, that's even more. So I will tax on to this as far as athletes. You got to make sure you vet coaches. You, and it's not just watching, it's watch what they're posting on social media. How are they posting it? What is their delivery? Do they have a chip on their shoulder? Are they just focused better? Or are they focused on giving this athlete education or knowledge? Or are they just focused on winning to prove a point, winning to be included in something, winning for the aesthetics and not necessarily for the overall beneficial of you add value to this organization, and or you are a value, because again, as an athlete, you're a product at the end of the day. Let's call a spade a spade. But are you in a space where, once you master your craft, that value is going to only increase? Are they giving you criticism to increase your value, or are they giving you criticism just to tear you down and to either make themselves feel better, and or just to see themselves as a coach shine? So that's the things that you have to look out for. So those are the things that I look for in my coaches. They're very straightforward, which I need that because I got anxiety, overthinking some situations, but I need that. I need you to tell me what it is. I need you to, because if you don't, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to figure out my own little plan and do my own
Right.
thing, especially when it comes to a goal. So if I have a goal and I don't have the right teaching, and or you just don't tell me everything I need to know, if I'm learning it from a book or somewhere else, I'm gonna go seek those spaces that are giving me that knowledge. Do I have to pay? Yeah, but is it gonna be accurate knowledge? I'm gonna make sure of it. So I think those are one of the things you have to be a little bit more, and this is kind of off track. You have to be a little bit more selfish with as an athlete. It's just making sure you're choosing not only the right coach, but the right environment, because that coach is going to be attached to that environment. Now, my coaches have created it's a great environment, it's a positive environment, and I noticed they created that within the bodybuilding organization, which sometimes I think it's a little bit hard to do because you get so succumbed to, say, if you're a basketball coach in a small town community or just a trainer in a small town community, and you create your environment, but now are you doing it to be a part of the environment or serving, or are you doing it just to be acknowledged and noticed as a title, as a leader? And that is giving you that self-importance, or are you actually doing it to serve and to help the next generation or help the next person that's coming up, to achieve and or offer, serve what they have to offer and serve to the community as a whole?
And that's good that you mentioned that the athlete has to prioritize. Like they have to do what works for them and look at and vet the actual coach themselves. Sometimes we think it's the coach vetting the players, but it goes both ways. And so when, let's say for instance, for preparation, there's training, there's a game coming up, or there's a show coming up, there's an event coming up, and there's so much training that's involved, right, to get to this level. What can athletes do to prioritize their mental health?
Ooh, so that's a good one. Excuse me. So that is a good one. And I think all of it for me, it all comes together, and it's not just bodybuilding, because everything I've done, like the sports and all that throughout, my younger years and to now, and even with the military, just preparing for like things like air assault school and training for that stuff, you have to, um, number one, physical part, make sure you prepare for that, but eating, number one, food, the foods you intake are going to be a major impact on your health, what you're eating. So it's just like, the saying goes, what you put in is what you put out. So if you're putting in grease, you're putting in junk food, you're putting in all of that. the stuff that may not be good for your health, you're gonna feel that way. That's the percentage you're gonna put out. Another thing for me, and I'm gonna have to use my experience because um I can't necessarily give it from somebody else's perspective. I can only use my experience, but for me, it's environment. What environments am I putting myself into? Do I even want to be in these environments? Is knowing how long I need to be in this certain environment. And I've said this before, but you heard it. It's more so my world. And I heard somebody say this. It's your world. I'm just living in it. You absolutely are, just like I'm living in your world. And so when I say that, it's more so I have my little world, how we're talking now. This is my world, it's just me and you. My world of peace, of this, of relaxation, doing things I want to do that aren't harmful to the outside world. But it's also I have my family world. I can go into that world and just spend time with my family and it's filled with love and nourishment and happy moments and just still relaxation. Then I have my bodybuilding world. Now, that is a whole nother different environment, but that is a world I created of making sure I pick the right coaches and making sure I pick the right people to be around that are going to push me, that are going to be either at my level or another level, because essentially it is who you surround yourself around. So if I'm at a certain level and I know I can execute at this level, but I'm needing a little bit more, yeah, I'm absolutely gonna put myself around pros and Olympians to get to that next level because we don't have to talk, but the work ethic there, the work that they're putting in is somehow gonna spin off onto me and that's gonna cause me to work harder, not to be them, but because that's just who I'm around. So it's peaceful there. And then my work life, my work family is um people who I can go to, I can talk to. These are people who I know that can cover me. But in all these little worlds outside of mine, these are people in poetry community. These are people who I know that can actually cover me when I need cover. So you have to make sure, just from that aspect as an athlete, whatever environment or world you've created for yourself, you got to make sure that people are going to be the number one thing that can contribute to making sure you keep your mental health intact emotionally and or spiritually, because it's energy at the end of the day. What
Right.
is going to, is this going to drain my energy, or is this going to add to it for me to produce better sleep regimen, again, nutrition regimen, but going back to that, the fans versus friends. Am I, I have people when they reach out to you on, social media and stuff like that, um, and I'm in prep 16 weeks out now. Yeah, I could talk to, whoever because I feel good right now. But when I'm 4 weeks out, am I going to be talking to this person? Absolutely not. And I have to take that into consideration. The energy I'm giving out now, am I going to be giving this energy out at 3 weeks out? No, I just got to be logical. Am I probably going to see this person later on in the year after this prep? 9 times out of 10, I'm not. So it's more so, what energy, whatever energy I'm giving out now, I have to think long term into consideration. Whatever energy I'm giving out now is the same energy that that person is going to be expecting from me at my 3 weeks out or whenever we meet up again. And if I lie to myself, I'm lying to them. If I don't have the energy now, I'm not going to have any at all. So that's the things I think you have to, just as athletes, you have to look out for because you're not going to want to talk to people all the time. You're going to want to be by yourself. If you're like me, I love basking in my own energy. I don't like being around people all the time. Y'all know me. I don't like being around people all the time. I just like I really love sitting in my own energy. And that's what helps me kind of not pick and choose, but I'm very selective. I'm very selective about who I'm going to be around. That's what helps me make sure I have the right circle and or right people around me in order for me to excel. And if I'm supposed to be giving something back to this organization and or this group of people, not only can I excel, I can perform better in order to produce whatever it is I need to produce for them. Because it's athlete, and especially if you're getting up there you're older and you're getting sponsored, it's a business at the end of the day. So you have to take that into consideration. And you're a product, and you're a product that brings value. And if you're a product that brings value, yeah, you're gonna need to produce something for them. So you're gonna have to get serious about who's around you and who's in your space. That's just the way. That's just from my, experience or just my personal view on that.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about those who are already eating right and are already have the right, set of people around them? What other things can they implement to begin to prioritize their mental health? Like slowing down, anything, meditation? Are these things that are very helpful to those who are, going through the hustle and bustle?
With that, I would say, yeah, rest and meditation, mandatory. I have coworkers who have a day off. It could be in the middle of the week for rest. All of my clients, I speak to all of my clients about meditation. And it's not, sitting with your legs crossed in silence. Um, it's more so because once you understand that your brain is a muscle and that your brain needs rest too, and sometimes you have to force your brain to rest. um, Meditation could be anything from walking outside in nature. So it's more so what do you gravitate towards that helps you stay calm? So if it's walking outside in nature and trees, cool. For me, I like being by the water. I like the beach. I like the shore, the sound waves. That's the thing. Not a lot of people kind of understand that at first, but when you explain it to them, for example, if for me, I like the water, but if you're into, I have some people that don't recognize the sound of waves when they cut their little sound on the music on their phone. They want to listen to water. You can go to the beach and listen to natural sound waves. Just getting out air, fresh air, connecting that to your body. It could be different things. It could be painting. It could be reading. Whatever is going to have the improvement or whatever is going to improve um, the regulation of your nervous system, improve that from you either not having anxiety. If you have anxiety, what's going to help you understand the coping mechanisms to bring that down? If you have depression, the coping mechanisms that's going to help you deal with that depression in order for you to get out of bed, in order for you to get to your training. What are going to be the different methods for that? Is it community? What type of community do you need to be in? Is it, a community of people that meet up every Saturday and talk about the latest book that just dropped, a book club, or it could be any type of club. It could be service. Sometimes it's dabbling into the love languages, acts of service. If that helps, if that's a form of meditation for you, if that helps you, cool. And then if it's just a regular meditation, sitting in silence and working on your breathing work, that's another thing. Sound bowl therapy is another thing as well. And I'm not saying all these things, sound bowl therapy I've done, sitting in silence and meditation. I love that. I do that for days. Those are things I've already kind of mastered and I understand, but those are things that help me brain wise or just the rewiring of my brain to calm my nervous system to help me focus a little bit more on the task at hand.
Right. So I want our listeners to understand that there's everything, there's every aspect that can make a difference, whether what you're eating, your environment, as Shannon stated, she stated rest, sound, community, meditation, painting, whatever is meditation to you, you know yourself. Just listen to your body, listen to your emotions, listen to your mind. What is it that you feel that you need in that point in time where you feel like you need to, just relax? Whether you have an event coming up, practice, we have to go in it with a clear mind. And I mean, I'm not an athlete, but I remember when I used to play sports, and you have to go in there with a clean mind because you don't want to allow the pressure of the outside to come in. And it's like Shannon stated, you have the choice to either observe or absorb. And if you come in to that atmosphere with the right mindset, you will be able to choose the right choice, which is to to observe rather than absorb. So I think it's very important that our listeners, whether you are a coach or an athlete or wherever you are, you have to prioritize your mental health because it can change the game, it can change the outcome of your, of your performance. Be mindful, stay present. Don't get lost in, trying to impress when in reality you're not even there. Like you're not even realizing what's going on. But if you stay present, you stay mindful, you're alert, you're aware, you're seeing your opponent, you're seeing this, you know where you have to improve. It's so much to it. It's so much to it. So I can just imagine like the pressure that is on these athletes. Now, as a coach, Shannon, have you ever experienced someone who has have you like witnessed someone who is suffering from anxiety or depression? Like, were there signs, or do you have a story that you can share that will be
Yep.
helpful for both our friends, fans, and coaches to begin to observe and realize, okay, this person might be going through depression?
Yes. So, as far as body building, I haven't had any clients with depression, anxiety. Yes, I could spot that from a mile away. And it's only because I've went through, suffering from severe anxiety when I was younger, the blackouts, all that. So I know what's coming next when it comes to anxiety. First, it's more so, you know, blank stare, or they'll start thinking, or they'll start getting rigid, that type of stuff in anxiety. Now, depression, I haven't seen that in my bodybuilding clients, but my personal, clients, and I'm not going to give any names or anything like that, but my individual clients that I actually train in my daily job, yes. So when it comes to signs, and when it comes to depression, I will say this: some of my clients come right out and they say it. Some of my clients, they don't say anything. But when I sit down with them and I talk with them and I ask them about their nutrition and I ask them about what they're doing on the weekends and this or that, and if they say something that sticks out that's abnormal, um, I'll be like, okay, and then I'll follow up with them probably a few days later, because I follow up with them once a month, but if that's a little bit abnormal what you're eating, what you're doing, I'm gonna follow up with you probably within 2 business days, 2 to 3 business days, to see if you're still eating or drinking the same thing in large consumptions. And if you are, it's just like, okay, that's a telltale sign, because sometimes people with depression, they either overeat or they undereat.
Mm.
And sometimes it's more so repetitive type things. Or when it comes to depression, you're not necessarily getting out how you need to get out. Yes, I have dealt with that. And the key things is with that, it's just baby steps. Just like anxiety, you have to treat it just like anxiety. It's baby steps. It's more so, okay, so we've identified the problem, we've identified the issue. And now that we've identified this issue, acknowledgement, accountability on what you're doing. Because if you don't take accountability for whatever, if I'm overeating a family size bag of Dorito chips every 2 hours and I say, oh, it's just a snack, I'm not taking accountability. I'm just trying to make myself feel better at the end of the day. But if I say, okay, I am overeating a family size bag of family Doritos every 2 hours, I got a problem. Because when we look at the nutrition fact, not only nutrition wise do you have an issue, you have a health issue at this point. And if you're not fully accountable to, okay, let me just accept the fact that I'm eating trash, I'm putting trash in my body. So once that, I think that kind of clears up the mindset to, okay, taking accountability. I see the issue. Now I need to cut back. So take, one bag away, 2 bags away. Now that we have, kind of scaled it down, now we can work on replacing this. I'm not saying take away the chips. Now we can work on replacing this family size bag of Dorito chips with veggie straws. Something simple, in order
Right.
to rewire the brain, because at that point your brain is not functioning properly. It's telling, okay, I need this, I need it, and you're not necessarily tasting the food, you're not savoring it, you're just eating it, eating. So once you've identified the issue, you come up with a solution to either reduce and or cut it out totally. It's just rewiring the brain. And then sometimes I have those clients that find out they didn't necessarily need the bag of chips in general, regardless of what it is. They probably just needed to just change their way of thinking. They probably just need to add in, exercise, or they probably just need to add in meditation or rest or whatever it is. Because sometimes that brain is on the go and you're trying to um, self soothe yourself with food. And though we see it in some cases, self soothing yourself with, oversleeping, or self soothing yourself with various amount of things. But when it comes to depression, it's more so rewiring that brain. And if you have, in some cases there are issues, acknowledge that you have it, because there are some cases where you do need medication for it, and it's okay to say that you need medication for it. Or if you don't want to go the medication route, it's more so changing your diet, fruits, veggies, adding in things that may improve the overall effect and the chemicals in your brain. And it's just like that with anxiety as well. There's always a natural state for you to improve your health and improve your diet for those chemicals to balance out for you to feel better.
Okay. So it sounds like anything that where there's an imbalance, that depression might be present. If there's overeating or not eating enough, oversleeping or not sleeping enough, over consumption of alcohol or okay, we'll leave that one there. But and wrap it up. But before we do, what are some last minute advice that you have for coaches and athletes as well? Because you've been on both sides of the spectrum. So what advice can you give to prioritize your mental health or just do things a bit differently?
Um, I'll try to do this with both for coaches and for athletes. I think number one thing when it comes to the coaches and the athletes, communication, teamwork, um, being open, having an open door policy, making sure you communicate effectively, um, and understanding communication styles, because everybody has a different communication style. Um, Sorry about that. Understanding communication styles, and then patience from both ends, because everybody's still growing and learning. Now when it comes to and I'll say this for both. Well, I'll go lean more towards the athlete side. Um, Athlete, because you are the product, because you are what's bringing in the crowd, the money, whatever it is, the clientele. Um, just making sure you're aware. You stay grounded in yourself, and you're aware of what you're bringing to the table, your value, and then also understanding that what you're bringing to the table and your value is required for you to take care of your mental health. It's required for you to make sure you're doing the inner work. It's required for you to make sure you don't put yourself in uncompromising positions and or environments that may hinder the progress, or that may ultimately stop um, what's trying to be gained from all of this. Vetting, number one, I'm just gonna put that back in there. Vetting your coaches, making sure you stay on top of your stuff as an athlete, but also make sure you vet your coaches. Always communicate to your coaches if something's wrong, so that way they can help you. And when it what am I trying to say? Oh, so with all that being said, making sure that your coaches, a highlight that I want to point out, making sure that your coaches are also doing the work or have done the work. And you'll know that by the way that they talk to you. You will know that off rip by the way that they talk to you. Your coaches will talk to you with respect. They will not belittle you. They will not leave you lost in the sauce. They will not undermine you. They will give you the knowledge and education that you need to succeed. But the key thing is making sure your coaches are doing the work or have done the inner work. That's going to be the biggest green flag I could give to athletes. It's just making sure you be aware, especially if you're, and it's just not just with bodybuilding. This is if you're trying to transition coaches, and or you're trying to find a coach for yourself and or your child in whatever sport they're playing. Make sure you vet the coaches. Make sure you personally talk to the coaches, because people can talk up good game, and people can talk up a person all they want. But if you don't necessarily spend time with the coach, observing that coach, and your child has to spend time with that coach, meaning practices, stuff like that, not like on the outside, but actually spend time being trained by that coach. And everybody's human. People are going to have their faults and stuff like that. But you have to make sure that it's going to be an environment to where your child can thrive, learn, And if they wanted to become a coach themselves, they already have the teacher right there on hand. So that's one of the things that I would say highlighted just from my personal experience is just being up under those coaches where I myself not necessarily want to be like them, but I can learn enough in order to put in my authenticity and to add to a company, a space, or an environment of where I can thrive and I know I can thrive in. And having that mindset of knowing that you can thrive anywhere you want to as long as you have the proper game plan for your mental health. And as long as you're taking your mental health seriously, that's the last thing. Just take your mental health seriously, and for coaches, take your athletes' mental health very seriously because that's your product at the end of the day. And I'm not saying it's something that they're not a trophy, they're not an object. It's a person at the end of the day. But you would want to know that you did your absolute best with yourself in order for that to trickle down to your athlete. Because sometimes, especially as children or just athletes coming into a different environment, if they don't see their coaches doing something or they're not aware or they don't have that proper education, one of my coaches, well, I'm pretty sure all my coaches, but my opposing coach, she meditates. Now, have I been meditating before I got with her? Absolutely, yes. But the fact that she's meditating and she does the work herself, it adds it's a good fuel to the fire. It's a good fuel. It's not a bad fuel. It only adds fuel to the fire to make that flame go higher. So that way you can see it, rise and rise and rise. And that way it's just going to help me and whoever else is connected to me. That's the energy we're bringing. That's the energy I'm bringing. That's just what it is. Nobody and I'm not saying I have to have selective. I'm very selective, but everybody around me, friends, family, they do some type of inner work. There's nothing. That's just what it is. And that's just the standard I have. If I can see you're not doing the inner work or you just don't want to, I'm gonna back away from you. I'm just gonna back away. But that's the thing. You have to vet the coaches. You have to make sure your environment is conducive for you and the athlete. And you just got to make sure that you're constantly in a state of having an open mind to learn and have a willingness to improve your mental state and your health in order to achieve whatever it is you guys need. You're needing and wanting to achieve, and or you're needing and wanting the athlete to achieve to better their lives, so that way they can help somebody else in the process.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much, Shannon, for your wisdom, your information, your counsel. It was truly beneficial for me, and I know it was beneficial for those who are listening. So thank you for joining us today. And I will definitely be reaching out to you again for another topic that I have in mind, and I hope that you can shed some light on that. But I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a good day.
You too, Giovanna. Bye.
Well, there you have it. That was Shannon Alise, a life coach, a mental health coach, and a personal trainer. She had such amazing insight from all sides of the spectrum: fans, friends, coaches, parents. We have to be mindful for those who are in sports, for those who are in coaching. I'm sure coaches even themselves go through so much pressure with, the outside world talking about their team or, with all these things going on, expecting so much of them, because then you have people who actually make bets on these sports, right? And that can be challenging. I've seen situations where fans were just bashing coaches, bashing players, and it's like, guys, we don't understand the other side of it. We don't understand it. And I'm in no way validating or, what should I say, advocating for betting. I'm just saying that I've seen these situations. So how can athletes, coaches, fans, all create a community that will be helpful and beneficial to the sports arena? Prioritizing your mental health, communication. She said it, rest, your criticism, vetting your coach, vetting your athlete, vetting all these things because you want to make sure that everyone is doing the inner work. And for the fans who have so much pressure, I know you want your team to win. You're rooting for your star athlete, but my God, you don't understand what they're going through behind the scenes. So keep your negative comments to yourself. Until next time, I'm your coach and your host. Talk to you later.